Everybody knows tennis is different now. The serve dominates, most of the action happens from the baseline, and the athleticism is insane. What worked on tour 40, 30, or even just 20 years ago just isn't going to work today.
And players have to train accordingly.
I want to know what's changed in that training and why. With some help from the experts, including tennis historian Joel Drucker, smart coaching genius Mike James, Coco Gauff's former fitness coach Richard Woodruff, and the guy who of course practically wrote the book on modern tennis training, Andre Agassi's former trainer Gil Reyes, I've gone on a deep dive into the evolution of performance coaching. And thanks to a really cool tennis tech prototype, I even caught a glimpse of what cutting-edge tennis training looks like today.
And it got me thinking so much that I had to ask myself the question, could we see a day where tennis training is going on without a coach present at all?
Controversial, right? But still, you gotta wonder. Tennis history is pretty much divided in half, before the Open era began and afterwards. In those early days, the amateurs just weren't dedicating their whole lives to training. They couldn't afford to. Tennis was a smaller game back then, with fewer nations and fewer names involved. So the training that did go on was mainly focused on technique. It was Harry Hopman and the Australian Davis Cup team who started to change that, taking tennis seriously as a physical sport right before the beginning of the Open era. Roy Emerson would famously play 6 sets to prepare for 5-set matches.
Which personally sounds killer.
Fitness, I think, is an outgrowth of competitive parity and other nations vying.
And fitness became more important with the rise of a more attritional game style, baseline to baseline, with the two-handers like Bjorn Borg coming to prominence. But then, Joel told me something that surprised me.
The other people who really pioneered fitness in the contemporary era were net rusher Martina Navratilova. She was the real pioneer.
Up until the 80s, there was kind of a single sport focus, and a lot of tennis training was really just drills and practice matches. But in the early 80s, Navratilova started doing cross-training and taking nutrition seriously too. And then there's Gil Reyes, who became Andre Agassi's fitness trainer. He worked in basketball and had never actually trained in tennis before Agassi approached him.
No, I had never seen a tennis match. When I started with Andre, I had never seen one. I'm not sure that I had ever watched an actual tennis point or a game or a set.
This meant he had an unconventional approach focused on strength.
I was just a little bit, I guess, shell-shocked at the doubt, and the people were kind of really talking to me in a negative sense about, you're going to ruin the kid. You're going to ruin the kid. Comments were like, if you lift weights, you're going to get slow.
I mean, Agassi's whole career is proof that Gil's methodology worked.
Either you were fast or you were strong. Andre said, no, the way the game's going, you have to be both.
And something else Gil brought to the game was the importance of recovery, with his infamous Gil Water, which was different energy or recovery drinks for Agassi to have before, during, or after a match. Back then, Gil was a rarity. Players didn't really formalize their fitness training. In fact, they mostly just did it by themselves. The exception, however, was the rise of the tennis academy. It was Nick Bollettieri who pioneered the academy system, getting players in super young and training them up all the way through onto the tour. Monica Seles, Jim Courier, and Agassi all trained at his academy. But Agassi described it as a glorified prison camp, and not all that glorified. The endless drills there made him a fantastic tennis player. And it follows on from Borg's approach, which was less to be able to do everything on the tennis court and more to knuckle down on a few really specific skills.
Don't necessarily need to have a particularly good slice backhand. Don't need to have particularly good volley technique. Don't have that much command of that many spins. And just the game is going to become an attrition-based game.
The emphasis on attritional training is part of what upped the sport's physicality. The Spanish method is huge here, building fitness and footwork from the ground up, just preparing a player to hit as many balls as is necessary in however many hours of match play. This is partly why the Spanish are so good on clay.
But their two super geniuses, Alcaraz and Nadal, embraced more tactics. Nadal built the slice backhand, learned to come to net more, became more comfortable in that part of the court. Alcaraz was seemingly baked into that from a young age to become a far more versatile player.
Because you can't just have one tool in your kit anymore to succeed. With the rise of the two-handed backhand and players' ability to slide, even on hard courts, players are just going after every single ball, and they're also able to produce winners from pretty much anywhere on the court.
And that's one of the reasons the straightforward closed-skill isolation drill coaching might not work so well anymore. It's because the modern game is all about adaptability.
I also realize that we as coaches don't do enough listening. The athlete does not have a whole lot of say in what they're going to do that day. Think. Teach them to think, not what to think.
But one thing that will always be key is the serve, and increasingly so nowadays. It's because we're firmly in the serve era now. A combination of tech innovations and increased strength at the turn of the millennium saw first serve percentages as an average across the ATP Tour go from 57.5% in 2000 to 60.3% in 2004. And if you look at the hold of serve rate over the decades, it's been rising as well.
It's the taller, stronger players who are coming out on top, or the ones with the best movement.
And some would say we've lost the artistry of the serve and volley or the one-handed backhand. Even Lorenzo Musetti, the last one-hander left in the top 10, has gone on the record saying that he wouldn't even teach his own son the one-hander.
It's really the power of the two-hander that's winning out on tour right now. But on the flip side of all of this increased physicality on the tour, there are some consequences.
A two-handed backhand puts more force through the wrist, leading to injuries like the one we're seeing with Carlos now, which, by the way, ended his clay season, and now his grass season before it even started. That's in his dominant wrist, but Rich actually told me something more surprising.
The guys especially started using that non-dominant hand, and so that was the type of thing you started seeing, those types of injuries.
The increase in spin in the modern game is also partly to blame. Harder tennis balls and stiffer synthetic strings have also increased shock transmission from racket to player, particularly in the shoulder, which is the key agent in the serve. Shoulder injuries now account for 50% of tennis injuries, and somewhere between 60 and 86% of all tennis players have some sort of maladaptation in their shoulder. This is why there's now such a big emphasis on recovery for these modern players. Simply put, there has to be. Players are putting their bodies through hell, and before the 90s, there was no organized sports medicine on the tours. Each player was just kind of in it for themselves. Now, tournaments offer tailor-made support, including performance and injury prevention screenings. Similarly, among today's top players, we see some massive entourages. It's important to note that each of these people plays a key role in the player's fitness and training. It's a consequence of how physical the game is now. Players have to prioritize their health, and that shows in the priorities of, say, top 100 players.
There's actually more players that'll travel with a physio than with a fitness coach. That's where I think that comes in. It's the preventative part and then also the recovery part.
We've come a long way from the amateur days. It also goes hand in hand with how long the seasons become, with the 2-week Masters being just the latest example. As Tommy Paul put it, teams are getting bigger and bigger because we just don't have any time at home. In today's fast-paced tour environment, if they want to prevent injury and stay competitive, players have to have the right people around them, and also the right tech.
In the old days, recovery was mainly an ice and aspirin kind of approach. Without so much tech to understand just exactly what's going on the inside of the body, players were mainly focused on treating the symptoms rather than the underlying causes.
But that's all changed. As just one example, the age-old tradition of braving an ice bath is slowly being replaced by cryotherapy. Players stand in temperatures nearly 100 degrees below zero for just a few minutes, which is enough to promote recovery and reduce muscle soreness. Nadal, Djokovic, and Wawrinka were all doing this from the end of the 2010s onwards. And Djokovic, well, he's a recovery story all on his own. He famously promotes the use of hyperbaric oxygen chambers, which can raise your red blood cell count and accelerate healing. He brings a portable chamber with him to slams and famously used one in his injury recovery in 2024, when he appeared in the Wimbledon final just 39 days after knee surgery.
Until one of these companies sends me one, I can't tell you firsthand whether it actually works or not.
But I think Novak's pretty pleased with the results here. Meanwhile, the Australian Open this year caught a lot of flack for the wearable tech controversy. Some of the very top players, Alcaraz, Sinner, and Sabalenka among them, were forbidden from wearing certain fitness trackers on court. Back in the day, it was just you, yourself, and your racket going out there, but now players really seek to understand what's going on inside their bodies. Something like Whoop measures things like vitals, exertion, and recovery, and can act as kind of an early warning system for injury risk and illness. This again is really important as the sport gets even more physical. And speaking of analysis, 40, 50 years ago, tennis coaching was done by feel and muscle memory.
If your coach told you something needed fixing, you'd kind of just have to take their word for it. But there wasn't really a way for them to show you.
Tech has changed all that. And someone really at the forefront of this shift is Mike James, the head of coaching strategy and intelligence at Oracle Tennis.
We have the biomechanical analysis, we have the skeletal data, we have that not live, but we have it after the matches. So in NBA, Oracle is in NBA and in Premier League Soccer, and we have that live in the matches. So how does that help the coach? If LeBron James' skeletal data is changing, so his running gait is changing, it often means there's an injury coming to the player. So we're taking the line calling data, we're taking like your whoop, your catapult, this sort of physical data. And what's great is particularly Hawkeye, they created a skeletal model, I think the back end or the beginning of 2024. So we're now buying the skeletal data. So what is that? So when we load that in our system, you see Irina Sabalenka and she's like a little stick woman that she's moving around. That's what you see on the screen. But what that allows us to do is to see her joint movements and to see the ranges of motion. So where she's most comfortable hitting a forehand and where she's most stressed, and actually pinpointing how we can capitalize on that. So it's pretty incredible stuff, actually.
For Mike, it's not just about technique, but also about looking after a player's health as well. He spent the last 4 years working with Holger Rune, and he wants to make sure catastrophic injuries like Holger's Achilles tear happen as infrequently as possible. He thinks these technologies and the expert guys who go about implementing them are the way into the future.
My role is still quite niche. So there's maybe 5 or 6 guys on the tour operating like myself or Shane. And I think if we have this conversation in 5 years' time, there'll be 20 or 30 guys operating within the teams. Because I do believe Carlos or Yannick, with the level of sports science that's around now, they could be 40 years old and world number 1.
Another example in all of this is Swing Vision, which tracks your shots, analyzes them, and generates heat maps for where everything is landing. All the stuff your coach would have just been doing by the eye.
And this got me thinking, maybe your coach doesn't need to be there on the scene at all.
This is Tennibot. It's designed to be your hitting partner, with programmable feeds that you can tailor to your skill level, way beyond the capabilities of any ordinary ball machine. The genius team behind this thing actually sent me a prototype to try, so let's check it out.
I can't believe it, but I actually just waited 2.5 hours to get on this court here in New York City. We're doing this for science, going to see if I can actually give myself a real tennis lesson without a coach or a hitting partner on court. So my phone is controlling the Tennibot. It's also running Swing Vision, and I'm gonna have Tennibot run me through a few drills. I can control it all through this app. It's connected right now. Let's go pro inspired. Movement and footwork, I always need to work on that. Wait a minute, how am I supposed to track this on Swing Vision and run the Tennibot stuff? I don't know if I thought this far ahead in advance. So the one part of this experiment that I kind of really messed up, it's only having one phone. I need my phone to run the Tennibot drills, and I can't exactly use it at the same time that I'm tracking Swing Vision. So that's already another problem.
Despite this technical hitch, I decided to go ahead with the session anyway.
Okay, that was pretty cool. Yeah, definitely it hits a real ball. Those had pace, depth, spin, and it was definitely running me around.
Then, with a bit more technical understanding of what I needed to do to actually execute the session, I came back the next day for more.
We're here on Long Island now. I have my friend Samir here. Hi. Subscriber of the channel, friend. And by the way, for those of you who don't think that I actually scroll through and find hitting partners from that link that I have in the description, Samir is living proof of that.
With Samir's help, I set up Swing Vision to record the session.
I feel like that's the type of ball that I need to hit back in a match.
Yeah, I mean, that's depth, pace, and spin.
Yeah.
And even if it's coming at you a little long, I
Yeah.
mean, that's still, you're practicing the same thing.
Yeah.
There are things that you would never do if you were just on court with like a coach or a hitting partner because you just don't want to embarrass yourself.
Yeah.
Catch us embarrassing ourselves with this Stan Wawrinka-inspired one-handed backhand drill. And guys, before you come at me in the comments, neither of us play with a one-hander usually. Let me tell you, I was still a bit nervous about sending this off to a coach. But in the interest of science, I did send it off to Joe Brennick, an ASICS tennis coach who's gotten really big in the world of online coaching.
Is there any hope for either of our one-handed backhands?
I think there is. I mean, maybe clean up a few that went in the net and you've got a chance.
Anything technical that you saw?
No, I mean, it's quite hard to tell from that angle.
This raised an interesting problem.
Often, when coaching, you're seeing a player from front on, like face to face. I guess as a coach, being on the receiving end of the ball that a player has hit can give you so much feedback in itself. On the Swing Vision reviews, or often when the camera is mounted high up against the fence, it can be hard to read how the ball reacts or what it's kind of doing and the characteristics that it has.
There are some things a camera and a digital coach just can't do yet, especially when you need 2 phones to accomplish a session. But Joe did tell me setups like these do have their benefits too.
From a recreational point of view, I think it's invaluable. Errors, unforced errors, it really is an eye-opener for a lot of students. And I've used a lot of the stats from Swing Vision. I think they're great.
I had a lot of fun with Tennibot, and I do think it's a great tool to make tennis training more convenient and data-driven. Will it replace a human coach entirely? For the moment, I'm not too sure. If you're a player who's looking to drill down on specific patterns or just get a lot of reps in a session, the Tennibot is a super helpful tool.
Like if you're a medium or high-level player who's looking to improve a specific part of your game, or if you're just trying to hit a lot of balls during a session, the Tennibot is probably one of the best products on the market for it. It'll feed you a real ball, it'll move responsively and dynamically, but it's not going to give you the same feedback in real time that you'd get for a coach. The guys were super nice to send me one, and if you also want to try out the Tennibot, the link's in the description if you want to check it out for yourself.
Here, Rich made another good point.
When you come train with me, one of the things that you pay for is my eyes.
All of these analytics are great, but they can't account for mental burnout, which is less important at the recreational level, but crucial for a pro. And in all the training history I've uncovered in making this video, there's been a constant through line: the importance of the human touch. Because the sport is actually getting less lonely, not more. The bigger entourages and the change to the rules to allow coaching during matches means a player isn't exactly all alone out there anymore. And this is something that I think is so much better for player mentality. And that's a part of tennis training we can't forget about: the mind as well as the body. And tech can only go so far with that. It's clear that the way players train has a massive impact on how tennis is played. So who knows what the training, and therefore the tennis, might look like in 10 or even 20 years. Maybe this guy will be the norm, or maybe it won't. But for a player like myself, it still represents a really cool opportunity. But I want to know what you guys think. Is the tennis tech revolution only just beginning, or will human touch ultimately win out?
As always, be sure to like, subscribe, turn on post notifications so you don't miss a thing we're doing here on Courtside Tennis. And until next time, keep going for the Lions.